This tutorial is going to talk you through the jokes generator project at the end of the chapter. We're going to be working with Python, and I am going to go back to my attendees conference example, and we are going to also just going to show you how to do a unique data file if you need to. Remember, you just go ahead and you can add a file, and we're going to call this attendees. And then in the this is where we're going to put in the names of our attendees that we kind of had before. And then remember that the other data file that we worked with, or when we worked with this before, we had whether that attendee was a member or not, and then we had the next attendee and whether they were a member or not of the association, etc. This is how our file was set up. For the end of chapter project, they're going to separate this data out into two files. So I need to create a new file, and this new file is going to be a members file. And in my members file, and I believe actually I need to name these, I might have to rename it. I need to name these .txt because they are text files in order for this to work. And so get that set up. And then as we work through this, then the members is just going to literally be yes, no, yes, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. I'm just going to make it up. These two files are what we call parallel data. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes or no's, maybe do one more. And then my attendees, I'll have to fill in their names, but they're not going to have the they're only going to be names in this file. So I said I think I had Fred and Wilma, and I had Barney, Rubble, and I had Betty, Rubble, I don't remember. I know I had Dino in there too. There's 5 pieces of data, and then I think we had Bam Bam. I don't remember if Bam Bam's a Flintstone or a Rubble. I think he's a Rubble. Alright, so that's our setup. And so we are going to then, instead of working with a single data file, we're going to toggle back and forth between these two data files, opening and closing them. I copied over our code from the previous version of this when we had a single data file, and I'm going to go through what we're going to need to change. So first of all, I'm going to actually have 2 file paths, and so we have a file path for attendees, but we also have a file path for members. So we could name this just file path 1 and then file path 2. So basically you're going to have to duplicate the ideas of the concepts, and we have members.txt then. And then when I open, I'm going to have to do the same thing. And because I'm going to have 2 files, this is a variable here that you can change. So we could just say that this is going to be the attendees file, and we're going to open that for reading. And then we're going to have the members file that we're going to open for reading. Okay. And we open it for reading with an R. And so we have now 2 data files that we have open. File path 1, file path 2. Double check my typing. I don't know why it's yelling at me right now. It says undefined file path, and that is because I named them file path 1 and file path 2. So when you get those errors, hover over them and they will give you a little bit of a hint as to what's going on. Next, in the previous version, we only had to worry about reading in 1 line at a time because it was a single file. And we're still going to read 1 line in at a time, but we're going to read a line in from the attendees file, and then we're going to read a line in from the members file. And so we're going to have a line read, and so it's going to be a attendees, a line from the attendees file, and then I'm going to read in a line from the members file. The difference here in file was the variable name that we had before. I have to associate the file that I opened with this. And my naming is getting a little bit like I have, so this line is going to have to come from the attendees file. is where I'm going to have to read that line. And then the second one here is going to have to come from the members file. So I'm getting a line of members from the members file, and it reads in one line at a time. And it's reading it in as a string. That was important before to know whether it's reading it in as a string or numeric data. And so now, I don't know what all we want to keep track of. We do want to keep track of a member count, and we needed to keep track of the total number of lines in the file before. We might need that. This while line has to correspond with the line that was fed in. And right now, I'm just going to pull on one of the files for this. What happens is when this is read in, it will read until the file is empty. It's going to go through the file and it's going to say, oh, there's Fred, okay, and then I'm going to the next is Wilma, next is Barney, goes to the end, next is Bam Bam, and then when it gets to next, it's like there's nothing there. When there is nothing there, that's when this while loop will false, because the value that's returned from line attendees, I have to change that to match the file I'm reading, is going to be return false data. And so that's how this while loop works. It basically is reading until the end of the file. And so this reads until the end of file is reached is what it does. Now, we had to keep track of odd and even lines before in the other program because we had all the data in one file. And so this time we don't have to do that because we have parallel data in two separate files. So I'm not going to have to check whether it's an odd line or an even line or adjust for that. I'm just going to go ahead and work with my data. In this particular program, I was totaling up the total number of attendees, and remember we had to use that strip command because we ran into an error with the reading in the yes data, okay? And then let me think for a second, because what we want to do, and let me just kind of pseudocode this out just for a second here if I think about it, okay? What we want to do is read in an attendee, and basically I want to count that attendee. In other words, I want to find out how many attendees there are. And then if that attendee is, if they are a member, then I want to count them. Then I want to also count the members. So now I'm counting attendees and I'm counting members is what I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head. And then maybe we want to find a particular attendee. All right, so I'm just kind of question mark. We want to find an attendee and determine if they are a member. This is more like what you'd have to do with your joke. So I might just actually tackle this because this is more like what you're going to do with your joke. We want to find an attendee and determine if they are a member, which would be more like what you guys are doing because you're trying to find a particular joke. Now, the way that they're going about finding the joke is they're just saying, well, which attendee do you want to look at, and then based on that attendee, you want to determine if they are a new member. So we might want to, as we go through with the attendees, we are going to print them on the screen and with a number. So then you can say, oh, I want to look at Fred or Wilma or whoever. And then after that, we are going to process the file again and find out if they are a member. So let's see how we're going to do this. So while line attendees, and that's just reading my attendees file, I want to just print out actually some nice, what do I want to say? I want to print out all the attendees in a nice format. And I'm using some, I'm just commenting out all of this stuff using a triple single quote in order to comment out a whole section. So I still need this while loop for all the attendees, and I'm working only with the attendees file. And so basically all I'm going to do is, and I have a member count, is I want to print like member 1, member 2, because I want to print right away. I'm going to make my member count 1. Actually, I'm going to make it 0 because I don't know I have a member until I actually go into this loop. So then I'm going to increment my count variable by 1. Because if I've entered the loop, that means I did successfully read at least one member, and I'm going to increment that. And then I'm going to print, and I'm just going to print the member count, which is the member number, plus the name of the member. And so it's just going to look like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to have their names. Now their member name is stored in line attendees because that's the line that they were on. I got to do some formatting. Member count is a integer, and so that's going to be 1, and I deleted it. That's not good. So I'm changing the number 1 to a, and then I'm going to do, like, I'm going to put in a period and a space. So hopefully this actually just prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many members there are. So I'm going to run that. I'm sure I have a mistake because things don't always run correctly, and it says it has members file, read line, line members, so I probably have a typo with the name of my file. And so I need to go all the way back and just check. I do, maybe not. Attendees file, and file by line. This is line 16. Line members, members file dot read line. I have a typo right there. So that was helpful to see what line number it was on. And now I have run an infinite loop, and we are consistently running Fred, and we now are up to 20,000 members, which is not what we want, and I don't know how to stop executing in Replit. Stop. That's probably a good idea. So that ran forever because as I did not reread in a new attendee, I have to read a new attendee into the file. So now let's cross our fingers. If we run it, we get our 6 people, and it stopped because I have this. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to prompt, I'm going to say, well, who do you want to see as a member? All right, you want to determine which of these persons is a member, and so you're going to ask for some input, and you're going to say their option that the chooser is going to use, and you're going to do an input, and you're going to say which member, which attendee do you want to check for membership, something like that. And they're going to enter a number. Because we know this is going to be a number to start with, we can cast that as an integer, so then I can work with it immediately as an integer. And last but not least, I basically need to repeat this code right here. I'm going to copy this. I need to repeat that code because I need to start all over again. And I'm not counting total lines anymore, so I don't need that because I'm using member count in order to do that. And I'm going to start all over again, but instead of reading in the lines from the attendees, I want to read or use the line members. And you could actually bring this read line, I'm going to copy that, you could bring it down here right before where we start to use it. And so I am going to use the members data. So I'm going to use a line in the members file, and I'm going to read until the end of the file. And I'm going to do, it's still a member count because I need to keep track of which member I'm on. And now I'm going to output whether or not they are a member. And they're a member based upon whether that data is a yes or a no. So if line members double equals yes, then I'm going to print that that person and something like print member, and I'm going to put in the number because we have the number associated with them. So member 3 is, or something like that is what this is going to say. Member 3 is or is not a member. So if it is a yes, member 3 is a member, as an example. Otherwise, we're going to print the same thing, but we're going to say that they are not a member. and I have to use my colon on that if statement. So if line members is double equals, and it does not like the indent, which is correct. So I'm going through member count. If line members was yes, that's the person I read in, then we are going to print this out. I need to indent it 1. I need to convert this number to a string when we print it out. We're getting pretty close to being done. I know this is a long video, but this will help you similarly on your joke generator as an example. I'm going to delete all the rest of this code because I think we're done with it. Getting closer. It does not like a few things, and that would be a beginning parentheses maybe. Kind of clean this up. And before I forget, we do have to close our files when we're all done. So don't forget to close the files. I'm going to just write myself a note. We have to close our files. I'm going to cross my fingers that this might run. And so we have a syntax error on else because I keep forgetting my colons. Cross our fingers. See if this runs. Nope. Let's take a moment to debug. And we're doing a print statement here. Trying to do this too fast. I'm sure you guys see what the error is, and it's an indentation error. I need to outdent that. So let's say I want to say member 4, and I hit enter. And again, I have an infinite loop. You think I would learn. So my infinite loop is because I forgot to read in the next person on that file. And actually, I have one critical error kind of going in. Actually, I did read in the line because I copied the code, but instead of line attendees, I need a line from the members file is what I need, okay? But the other thing is that I need to make sure it's on the member count. Like all of this is good, but it's not going to give me the right member. Like I need to make sure that the member count is what the person typed in. So for example, if member count double equals their option that they chose, if that's true, then I want to print whether they're a member or not. And I can highlight all of these and just hit tab to indent that. That's a critical question because otherwise it's not going to get the correct person that we want. So if I type in 5, then it's going to say nothing because it did not count if member count is equal to option. So member count should be going up. Again, we got to do some debugging. So is it doing my member count? So for example, if I'm just going to put in a print statement in here. This is good that you guys can see some of these errors that are happening because it's going to happen to you. If I print that member count while it's running, then I can at least see if it's actually counting my members. And it only executes through my code once. And I'm going to guess that's because when I read in the members file, members.txt, for some reason it is not going through and processing the next line of that file. Okay, I went in and debugged a few things. I had a couple of errors. One was that I had read this line in earlier. Remember, I moved that line down and then I did not comment it out, so it is now commented out. And we don't need it where it's at up there, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So I'm opening the file. And then I also added in the close files. That was not producing the error. My biggest error was that I was reading in the attendees file right here instead of the members file. And so when I changed that, I did not change it to the members file. So you can see over here, it's executing now. Betty Rebel, it says, is not a member, and she's the 4th one down. If I look at my members file just to double check, number 4 is not a member, and so that's producing the correct output. And so that is now our code. I would also recommend to keep the closing of the file as close as possible to that file. So I'm going to cut this line of code right here, and we're going to paste it and close the file right where it should be. And then the member, so we as soon as you're done working with the file, it is best to go ahead and close the file. And likewise, we probably didn't need to open the file for the members data until we needed it down here. And I think that's going to make this a wrap. It's a long video, sorry about that, but it does kind of step you through what you need to do with your jokes program. Because you're going to basically print your jokes, and then you're going to decide, have them pick which joke do you want to have the answer to, and then you're going to have to basically reset a counting variable and go through the whole thing again. You could also, as you're going through, ask them, just randomly what joke they want, and they have no idea. Like, you don't have to print this out. You could also then just say that if you want joke 3, then you could do all of this in a single while loop, and you could keep track of the joke statement and the joke answer, and then just print those at the end as well. But this does give you a solution for working through that problem if you need it.